time for the Shovel Shack. Today, my special guest, Brian Ray. Hey! All right. Special effects. Sparing no expense on the special effects here on the Shovel Shack. So happy to be here today to have a chance to catch up with our guest and to maybe raise a little bit of money for MusicCares. There's a donate button on the page that you can donate to, helping out musicians, people in the music community who are still waiting for some sort of stimulus of any kind that hasn't come through. My guest today, I'm so honored, started off his career straight out of high school playing with Etta James, and for 14 years was her guitarist and musical director. He's recorded and played with Johnny Holiday, Willie DeVille, co-wrote a hit song with Smokey Robinson, recently recorded a version of Tears of a Clown with Smokey Robinson, and for the past 19 years plus, we know him as the guitarist and bassist with Paul McCartney. Welcome to the Shovel Shack, Brian Ray.
Woo-wee. How are
Good to see you, Brian.
And you, buddy.
Now, I just, first of all, I have to point out the fact that we did not plan the wardrobe today.
No, we did not. This is just us thinking in the same way. I'm just wondering, where's the hat, though?
You know, I actually have like a straw hat like that, and I went to, sorry, hold on a second. I went to find it.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it, Brian.
Oh, man.
And
I got one for you.
Do you?
Yeah, but it's all the way down here.
I'll come down because it looks pretty nice there. It looks like you're in Palm Springs.
I am, yeah.
Wonderful.
It's my hideaway COVID pad, you know, it's where I'm doing this thing we're doing.
You have the Avante down there?
I do indeed, yes.
That is like where Avantes came from, right? The car?
Exactly right. There was this guy named Raymond Loewy who designed like a Coca-Cola bottle, like locomotive engines, furniture, houses, a design guy. You know, he did a lot of logos, and he designed this car for Studebaker, and it was done right down the street. So yeah, this is its sort of where it was conceived.
They're a work of art. They're a piece of art.
Yeah.
So I haven't really seen you or chatted with you, at least on camera, since I think Desert Trip.
That's right. Yeah.
That was it was. For me, that was like one of the probably greatest concert experience of my life. All those artists lined up, and I was so grateful to have a moment with you there and share a little bit of time together. How was that for you?
It was dusty and really friggin' hot and really exciting. I mean, look, to be a part of that bill with The Who, Neil Young, Paul McCartney, The Stones, Roger Waters, Bob Dylan. Who am I missing? It was insane. Fucking crazy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that could ever be repeated again. It's never happened before like that. Not since the early days of like, you know, the Fillmore or Woodstock have you seen that kind of incredible lineup, you know? Great to be.
Yeah, it was wonderful. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you started off with Etta James as a real youngster, like a teenager, and you were out on the road. How old when you started?
Well, with Etta?
Yeah.
So I met her when I was 18, and I'd just gotten out of high school, and I was brought by a friend of mine that I had met recently, named Phil Kaufman, to go see Etta James at the Troubadour. And he said, you know, maybe he was road managing her. Now, Phil Kaufman is a guy who we all maybe have heard a story about, Graham Parsons.
Sure.
Well, Phil Kaufman is that guy, okay, who was Graham's best friend and road manager and did that crazy deed out in Joshua Tree. Anyway, I had met Phil Kaufman, long story in that one, And he invited me to go to the Troubadour, where he promised he would introduce me to Etta James, with whom he was working, and he did. And Etta's sitting in the chair up there in the dressing room at the Troubadour. She had just played a ridiculous rip snorting show. It was 1973, and she had just gotten out of treatment for heroin addiction. And she looked up at me and she said, "My, you look like a Shetland pony." And I had this white hair that came down to like here. And, she was right. But she always used to call me that. She'd either call me that or Chicken Hawk. I'm not sure what that was about. But
now, you were a shredding guitar player by that point.
I don't know about that. I mean, I was really into the British invasion, which introduced me to all the guys that, informed their playing, like, Buddy Guy and Albert King and BB and David T. Walker, all those guys, all of a sudden they were flooding in right that moment. In 1973, I had just gotten introduced to all those, early cats. So I was ready. I was determined. I was hungry. I was full of, young, dumb, and full of cum, and I was just ready to blast away. But anyway, she looked at me, and there was sort of like that moment. And then later on, Phil took me to a rehearsal of hers, and the guitar player wasn't able to make it that day, and I was, and Phil invited me, and he and I in the equipment truck, and I brought my old 57 Les Paul, set up and played. I was intimidated. I was young, and at the end of it, she turned to me and said, "Sounds good, Brian." And then she turned to Phil and says, "I like that little white kid." And then she asked me if I would come and play with her the next night in Long Beach. And, 15 years later, we had traveled the world and done everything you could do.
So when I was preparing this show, Nate, who works for We Are Here, he said, you got to ask him about, playing with Etta James. And so, I'm imagining you're 18 years old, you're touring the world. We have this video of you playing at Montreux in Switzerland. And you're what, 18 years old?
I was just had turned 20 by then. So I met her at 18, started playing at 19, and a year later we were at Montreux having our first big European show. Yeah.
Well, I want to show this to our audience. I know your fans probably very familiar with this already, but the whole show exists online. But I just want to show a little clip of this so people can see the Shetland pony look that you had going there. Oh, by the way, I never knew this before. I've seen this clip a bunch of times, but I was looking at the lineup, and back behind like the brass section is a guy playing bass. Who's playing bass on this?
That's John Paul Jones.
John Paul Jones.
Yeah.
This is in 75?
This is 75, right. So they were just on a break from a tour, and they were all in Switzerland. The guy who puts on the festival there, who just passed a couple of years ago, Claude Nobbs, puts together an all-star band. So the promise with Etta is just bring your musical director and your boyfriend, or hubby, as he was, and I'll put together a band. And John Paul Jones was the bass player assigned to the gig, who volunteered for it while on break from Zeppelin tour.
That is incredible, because this is at the height of like Zeppelin playing stadiums.
Insane.
So as you're watching this video, you don't really see him. He's just kind of stuck in the back behind the wind. And just check it out. John Paul Jones playing bass and a young Shetland pony shredding on, is that your 57 Gold Top?
It is, yeah.
So let's play this. This is Etta James at the Montreux Festival, 1975, 20-year-old Brian James.
Can you say that? Get down! Get down! Get down! All right. if you disrespect everybody that you run into, yeah, how in the world do you expect anybody to respect you? When you don't give a damn about the man with the Bible in his hand, just get out of here and let the gentleman do his thing. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. Respect yourself, yeah, boy. Oh, respect your love. If you don't respect yourself, ain't nobody gonna give a good goddamn no, 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 no. Talk about the president. He won't stop the air pollution. Put your hand over your mouth when you cough. That'll help the solution. Don't give a good goddamn about the man with the Bible in his hand. Just get out the way and let the gentleman do his thing. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. If you don't respect yourself, ain't nobody gonna give a good goddamn no, 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 no.
All right. So there's Etta James, Brian Ray as the Shetland pony. Hopefully those skipping things weren't happening as it was going down the live stream. Fantastic performance, and great to see you, such a young age, on stage holding your own with John Paul Jones, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a crazy occurrence. Like any kid around my age, I was nuts for Led Zeppelin at that point. And as I just said, nuts for all of the early blues stuff and the British Invasion stuff. So I was crazy for all of it. 19, 20 years old. And now I get this phone call to go to Switzerland. And now I learn John Paul Jones is the bass player. And then Led Zeppelin walks into rehearsal as we're on a break and invites me out to dinner. So now I'm hanging out in the Alps with all of Led Zeppelin and Richard Cole, who you might know, who was their road manager at the time. And then we had a second rehearsal that night. And yeah, man, I mean, I felt like I was in heaven. I had a burger the next day after the show, ran into John Paul Jones over at the festival, and we sat down and had lunch together. And I go, oh man, I love that Kashmir. That's such a great song. And he goes, yeah, that's one of my favorites too. It was just like fucking crazy,
That's nuts. Now, was this before or after Smoke on the Water came out?
I think it was after. I think the casino that burned down that they're talking about in the Deep Purple Smoke on the Water was the old casino.
Okay.
And we were now playing in the brand new one that replaced it. And it was right there on Lake Geneva, an amazing sort of mid-century modern multiplex building. Yeah.
No flare guns allowed, though. No flare
No more,
guns.
no more flares allowed now. Put that shit out.
Oh, by the way, as you're watching, I want to remind our viewers that the reason we are here is doing this channel is really help raise funds for MusicCares, which is a great organization run by the Grammys to help raise money to help musicians and people in the music community who need a helping hand. And right now, a lot of them do. All this, unemployment for independent contractors and self-employed people has not really come through yet. And so MusicCares is there to kind of fill in the gaps and help people out in a pinch. And that's why we're raising money. So there's a donate button. And I'm sure Brian is very well familiar with MusicCares.
Of course, yeah. Please, everybody who's tuning in, if you can, please donate. It's such a great cause. They're such a great organization. They've been doing this for a long time. And Mark, you and I know some of the people involved. Remember Buddy and a lot
Harold.
Harold. All these greats that have provided this amazing service. So it's a great thing to do if you can. Musicians are not often, the most organized with their care, and they didn't work with a pension going. Musicians like me, I don't. It's not my story. I don't have a big pension either. So, although I've been fortunate, we got to help out these musicians.
Yeah, and so I know they did a big kind of a tribute to Paul at one point. That was one of their fundraisers. And just recently, we're in the middle, as if you're watching this in the future right now, as we're live, we're in the middle of the pandemic lockdown and a lot of people are hurting. And we just got the news that Amoeba Records has decided they can't reopen at the location that they've been at right there next to the ArcLight on Sunset Boulevard. They are going to reopen in the new location in the fall, but the place that we've known and loved for 2 or 3 decades, that's we're not going to get to say goodbye to it. And one of the great memories I have there is seeing you guys play. One of the great moments of Amoeba Records is the Paul McCartney performance live there. What was that like for you?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those brilliant ideas that Paul said yes to, which would to be underplay and go play something small and local just for buzz. It wasn't about money, but it was sure about buzz. And I, as you do, love Amoeba Records and have been a customer there for a long time and a patron and a lover of all things Amoeba. And now, the stage is like, 10 feet by 14 feet large, and I just remember that feeling, looking out there and seeing a lot of people that I recognize, sort of celeb pals and stuff like that, and friends of Paul's, and, a lot of these people out there, but just the place was stuffed. And there's a kind of a balcony around the back, and that was stuffed. And it was just a magnificent time. And I thought that we played and sang well. And so it made me feel proud and happy to be sort of doing something small in LA. But also, it was nuts. The traffic, once the buzz got out there that we were doing that, you couldn't get around Hollywood. It was just like there was no getting around. Plus, I think something like maybe it was Paris Hilton or something was on CNN across the street. So, but I think we took all of the credit for the traffic tie-ups. It wasn't Paris. It was.
Well, people slept overnight to get into that show. I was very fortunate to get in there. And you mentioned the celebrity guests and stuff that were there. I remember right before you guys took the stage, the VIP guests came out from backstage to take their positions in the middle of the room to watch the show. And out came walking Ringo Starr, Joe Walsh, Jeff Lynne, a variety of people. I think Olivia Harrison was there. And when they came walking out, the people just clapped them all the way to their spot. And one of the most touching memories I have of that show was when Paul started into the long and winding road, and I looked over, and Ringo was standing there, and there we were in the present tense, and seeing the gap from there back to that original recording, and the feelings that they were themselves having was so touching.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Great memory that you have there. And there was no sort of showbiz lighting in there. It was like store lights. And if I remember right, it was during the day, wasn't it? Yeah. Or late day.
Yeah, like 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And I saw those same faces that you're talking about, Barbara and Ringo and Joe and Marjorie and, you know, Jeff Lynne and all sorts of people, on and on and on. And it was such a warm feeling. And to see Ringo just, 20 feet away, beaming at his former bandmate, it just makes you feel kind of like, I don't know, lucky to witness that moment. And then since then, of course, we've had a chance to collaborate with Ringo quite a bit with Paul, and that's always been fun and hilarious because those two guys get together and it's just like, it's Abbott and Costello. It's bit after bit after joke after aside after joke. It's nuts. So there's no taking the Liverpool out of those guys,
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at a little moment of that Amoeba appearance, since we won't get to go back and look at Amoeba, and this is a great moment that they had. If you're able to roll this little clip from Paul McCartney at Amoeba Records.
Paul McCartney, man. We're here to see Paul. Are you here to see Paul? This guy's here to see Paul. Who's here to see Paul? Who's here to see Paul? What can I say? Well, everybody gonna dance tonight. Everybody gonna feel alright. Everybody gonna dance around tonight. Was it planned as a one-night stand, or did she leave in disgrace? I got a feeling deep inside. Oh yeah. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life you're only waiting for this moment to rise. Oh yes, you sound so sweet tonight. Everybody in me, but do it for me. Come on.
How often do you get to see Paul McCartney at a place like this? Never. Okay, I could die good at it. This was it. I've seen Paul McCartney in concert 15 times. This was the best.
Best day of my life. Literally, my entire existence. This is the best day of my life.
Paul, you're the man. Thank you for the music. Thank you.
Just amazing. What an amazing day.
Wow, that brought it all back, man. Thanks for playing that. That's crazy. I haven't even looked at any of that footage. I heard a little bit of the album, but I never looked at any footage from it.
Yeah, it's great that they put out the record, and I don't know if the whole thing is out on video, but it's nice to have that as a memory. So Brian, if you're just jumping into the stream here, I'm Mr. Shovel, or that's my radio name or whatever. I'm here with Brian Ray, guitar player, bassist with Paul McCartney, and we're just kind of going over the stuff he's done, and it's voluminous, and he's not only done all the stuff we've been talking about, but has his own band, the Bayonets, his own solo career, which includes a recent recording that you've done with Smokey Robinson.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
you've written with him in the past, correct?
I sure did. Well, I actually wrote a song for him 30 years ago with a writing partner of mine named Steve Legasic. And we heard that some friends of ours were going to be producing a new Smokey album. So we set to starting on a new song. And we called our friends up and said, hey, we have this great start on this song. We'd like to pass it off to you as producers. They said, oh, don't bother, really. Smokey's got more than enough material. Plus Smokey Robinson, yeah. Please don't even waste your time. And we're like, fuck. I was so bummed out. And I turned to my partner, Steve, and told him what the phone call was like. And he said, well, let's do it anyway. And I went, you're a genius. And so we started writing a song that became a huge hit for him called One Heartbeat. We finished writing it in about a week. We did the demo in another week, and we passed it off on a Friday. And I come back from being out of town on a Sunday. There's a voicemail message saying from the producers, hey, we played your song for Smokey. He loves it. We're doing it at Conway this Thursday, 32-track digital. Bring all your stuff. We're doing it just like the demo. Congratulations.
Wow.
So, you know, it worked. It was one of those wild things, man. If not for my partner saying, let's do it anyway, I would have just let it go and been bummed, right?
Well, was that the beginning of your friendship with them?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, it was the beginning of it, you know, as we were cutting that song down at Conway Studios, you know, just hanging out with him there. And the nicest guy, he would call me on my birthday, and he's always available. And all these years later, now I'm doing a solo project for Wicked Cool Records, you know, Little Steven's label, which is the coolest rock label in the world. If there is a rock label, this is the one. And, you know, Little Steven's also got that great radio show, The Underground Garage on Sirius 21. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so as I was getting ready to do some more songs, they said, hey, Brian, what are you thinking of doing next? And I said, I'm open. What do you guys want to hear next from me? I just done my first solo single after a bunch with the Bayonets. And they said, how about some garage soul? And I said, that's a great idea. I love it. Yeah, like, you know, garage soul, like Time Won't Let Me, you know, songs like that, you know, Mitch Ryder, that kind of stuff. And I said, okay, cool. Well, I just thought about it and said, what do I have that's more in the soul feel? And then I thought about this song, One Heartbeat. But the song One Heartbeat, the record that we co-produced or arranged, was kind of a slow jam. So it was like, that ain't going to get played on the Underground Garage. That's all about tempo and good feeling and a little bit of rebellion. And, you know, that's the good stuff. And so I thought, well, what if we reimagined it? So I called my old writing partner, Steve. I said, come on over here. I have this idea. And I thought of this up-tempo version of our old slow jam. And so we completely reimagined it as a fuzzy garage soul version of One Heartbeat with horns and everything. And so we wrote and redid One Heartbeat with that in mind.
Now you end up doing Tears of a Clown, and Smokey appears on the record, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we kind of got away with a trick over there. It was kind of a double A-side single for Wicked Cool, where the same day we cut the track for One Heartbeat at the Pet Sounds old studio in Hollywood. We also cut Pirate Radio, which would appear a little later, that you mentioned, and an old version of mine of Smokey's song, The Tears of a Clown. And as we were finishing it up, I thought, well, why not just call Smokey and see if he's, you know, take my call first of all, and then see if he'd be willing to add anything. Like, I don't care, flutophone, you know, like harmonica, I don't care, just a shaker, just come and hang out. And I asked him and he said, yeah, man, okay, cool, what time? You know, and I got a studio and he came by and he gave us a couple of hours, and man, what an honor. I mean, it's Smokey Robinson. the guy who wrote the soundtrack to our at least my youth. I'm a little less youthy than you are.
I'm from Detroit. I grew up on Motown, you know. I would like to take a listen to that if you don't mind. The recording you did with, I mean, everybody knows this song, so let's just check it out. This is Brian Ray's solo project with a guest appearance from Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
Give the band some.
Give the band some.
It was amazing, man. After he did his vocal, he comes in and he's listening over the speaker, standing up, and he's going, man, who in the hell is playing that motherfucking bass? And I go, oh man, that's my favorite guy in the States. That's a guy named Davey Farragher. He might be the best guy in town. And he goes, well, he sure the hell is. And he goes, that's the new James Jameson right there.
Yeah, he's playing with Elvis Costello.
Yeah, for years. Yeah.
that's literally garage soul, because that studio that Motown studio literally was a garage.
Yeah.
The room where they recorded had been a 2-car garage that they converted into a performance space in that house there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's an amazing museum if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, I've been there.
I know you have, but I'm saying if your audience ever gets a chance, unbelievable museum experience there.
It really is. It's like walking into a time capsule. I get goosebumps thinking about it because there's so much vibe in the wood, just in the walls. It's all there.
It's all there, yeah. Did you get? They have a ladder below, like an attic hole access to the attic part, and up there is where the echo chamber is. They literally like put a couple speakers up there and a microphone, and they have the ladder open to the hole. You can go up there and snap your fingers, and there is the sound of the Motown echo that you hear on the voices, on the tambourines, on the backgrounds, on the drums. It's a vibe.
Yeah, if you ever get through that way, definitely check it out. Now, when I took the tour, they told a story about the piano there, which they said had been in ill repair, and Paul actually restored it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were there doing that tour that day, and we were being led around by this lovely woman who was, I guess, the docent there or whatever. She worked there, really nice woman. And she's showing us the piano, and Paul looks down at it, and he goes to play it, but there's a piece of plexiglass over the keys, like, do not touch. And he goes, why, what's this for? Is this to keep people from touching the piano? She goes, well, actually, the piano is broken. The whole belly, it needs a lot of work. And I looked at Paul. I'm standing right by him. I looked at it, and he got this little glint in his eye. And then I recognized what I thought he was thinking. Sure enough, he offers to take the piano and send it to New York to Steinway and Sons. It's an old Steinway. Yeah. And have that whole thing completely rebuilt and restored, and send it back. And there it sits in the museum now, restored by Paul McCartney. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You were there then. You witnessed that.
I was with him that day, yeah. And then we did sort of a welcome back party for the piano at Steinway with Berry Gordy there and some of the other luminaries from the day, back in Motown day, Berry Gordy, of course. And we played some songs on it, and Barry played Money, the very first song he wrote.
Oh, wow.
That he said he wrote on that piano. It's just like, oh my God. Which, of course, the Beatles had a huge hit on. So we all played that song. Yeah.
That's so cool. Now, was that a piano that had been in that room and used for a lot of those records? So it's like the piano?
That was the piano. It was the only piano in that room. It was the only one they used in all of those days. I mean, places like, say, Abbey Road would have about 4 pianos, and you could have them wheeled in and out. Motown wasn't like that. There was a piano, you know, but it was a Steinway, and it was a grand, and it was gorgeous, and you hear it all over all those songs that we all know and love, you know.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So
man.
You have the song you were going to come when you came out with Pirate Radio last summer. You were going to come on Jonesy's Jukebox. We had it all lined up. Yeah. And then everything fell apart over there. And then like it never happened. But this is a beautiful song, a great tribute to the romance of radio when you're a kid growing up with it. Yeah. Obviously you were a fan of Wolfman Jack, and I'm assuming you listened to him on the pirate radio.
I certainly did. Yeah. A radio station, XERB, blasting out of Tijuana, Mexico, with I think like some crazy like 250 watts of power, 250,000 watts of power, and at a time where that was illegal. But it was called a border blaster station, where if you were over the border in a place that's not regulated like that, you could. So that station, which was an evangelist network, you know, distorted like, you know, Mexican dude yelling about Jesus during the day, turns into this whole other thing at night. And I just got a transistor radio, and you'll hear me talk about it in the song if you play it. But And on comes, I'm listening at night because now I'm addicted to the radio, right? So I'm listening at night and I'm going around the dial now. KRLA and KHJ are kind of scratchy. And here comes this station just blasting out of my transistor. And I'm under the sheets listening along. And it's like playing something like I'm not really hearing on KHJ so much, like the real shit, like the rhythm and blues and doo-wop that isn't getting quite as much play on commercial AM radio at the time. And then I'm going like, okay, what is this? Like I instantly recognized it as being like the real deal. And then here comes this, and hey everybody, this is the Wolfman. And here comes this crazy cat man. I'm going like, what the hell is going on here? And like so many great DJs, he came up with a bit, he came up with that's not the way he always sounded, sure. But in my mind, that's the way he always sounded.
And the magic of AM radio is at nighttime, it travels really far. It's different than FM in the way that FM can only go so far as the, power will let it go. But AM literally bounces off the ground and off the clouds and travels. And at nighttime, it goes super far. So you could have a station way far away and you're picking up a station from Tijuana up here in Los Angeles with no problem at nighttime. And you pick up stations all over the place. Yeah. This was what made pirate radio great because, like you said, they were across the border. They were not regulated by the FCC. And this must have been before American Graffiti. He became nationally famous, internationally famous because of his appearance in American Graffiti, playing exactly that kind of DJ.
Right. So my exposure to him was 1963. It was before the Beatles, because I remember a brand new song coming out of the radio, my transistor radio that I had just got, and it was it Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans version of Zippity Doo Dah or something like that, an R&B version of that, like musical track. Anyway, so and I looked at the date on that, and I think that was 62. So it was right around there, and it was before the Beatles, because once the Beatles came on, I was now obsessed with that, So I changed tracks like everyone did, but back then it was like, rockabilly, guitar, old rock and roll. Now it was doo-wop and R&B. And then it was the Beach Boys, because that worked for me. I'm from Los Angeles, so I could get with that. And then, of course, Motown. And then right after that, the Beatles come. So everything changed then.
Do you remember the first time you heard or saw the Beatles?
Oh, yeah. I mean, clear as day, like, billions of other people, it was that I'd seen pictures of them, and I had just heard like Please Please Me on the radio, and I had just heard like I think it was it wasn't All My Lovin' yet, but it was another one. And then in January, I think it was, or February, here comes I Want to Hold Your Hand. And it kind of blasted out of the radio like a furnace, and it freaked all of us out. And then, of course, February 9th, 1964, 3 months after losing JFK, this is super boomer speak right here, super, boomer. But 3 months after we lost JFK, here come the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And like every other American kid, I was sat on the floor of the living room in front of the TV, 3 feet away, Indian style on the ground, in anticipation of what was about to happen, because I was already kind of primed for it, and I'd seen a few pictures, but nothing like seeing those 4 guys live on a television set being lads. It's just like life-changing. Yeah.
Let's take a listen to your song Pirate Radio that we were referring to, and I'm assuming you got permission to use the Wolfman recordings in there?
Oh, yeah, we sure did, man. So funny. Let me just tell you a quick story, though. I sent in the demo to Wicked Cool Records, and they said, "Oh, we love this. This is really great." And I said, "Well, I just added some stuff to it. The Wolfman to whom I refer, and his wolf call and a couple little bits of radio chatter, and then legal calls me and says, Brian, we can't release this. We'll get sued. We're not going to do that. And I went, oh my God, what was I thinking? What a bonehead. And I just went online with my engineer, Jose Alcantar, who's brilliant. And he and I just worked away and said, we're not going to release this song without this stuff. Now it's become a big part of it. So we found the guys who do his estate now, who do licensing for him. And they're right there on Sunset Boulevard in the 9200 building. And I made a deal with them. Of course, they wanted the moon. And I said, no. I'm an independent record thing. I mean, my budget is like nothing. And they cut me a little deal. And it's for perpetuity, for the world. And there you go. I've got Wolfman on my song.
Here we go. This is Pirate Radio, Brian Ray on the Shovel Shack.
When I was a young boy, I got a new toy, a transistor radio. I was good to go. From the downbeat of my youth, I was searching for the sound of truth, and it found me. Yeah, it found me.
Oh.
Oh.
That's Brian Ray and Pirate Radio. The little skip in the middle, the little pause, that was my fault. Bad
Oops.
DJ. Like, Wolfman would never have done that. He was
It's
playing
not all right.
records.
It's loud.
I'm on a computer. So fantastic. That's really wonderful. What's your website? Because all your stuff is on there, including, the vinyl singles people can get as well, right?
Yeah. So Wicked Cool has been releasing all of these on vinyl as well as streaming them and as well as digital stuff as well. But yeah, if you go to my website, it's just my name, just brianray.com. Clever, I know, crazy.
It's easy.
brianray.com, and then my socials are like mostly Brian Ray Guitar, and it's all over the place. I'm everywhere. Can't get rid of me.
Thank you so much for taking the time and spending the time with us here. We're going to get ready to wrap it up, but it's really, really good to see you. It's great to chat with you. You look great. Next time I see you, I'll have my hat so we can match better.
That would be awesome. We got to hang sometime, Mark, man. I love seeing your face, man. You mean a lot to me. You've got such a big heart, and you're just really good at this. So thanks so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, Brian. And I send you a hug, and you take care of yourself out there. And I will see you at the end of all this nonsense. Okay? Deal.
Okay, that's for sure.
I'm going to leave off with a song that you had on your request list very, very early, Etta James, Tough Lover. This is her Little Richard version.
Yeah.
What do you got to say about it?
Oh, I just, I love early Etta. I love all Etta, but this is just a cool little punky song. She was like, a punk chick. She was like 17 years old and ripping it up, and I love it. Give it a
Cool.
listen.
Thanks again. Oh, I want to thank all the folks that helped here from We Are Here: Nate, Aaron, Steven, Laura, Jody, Emily, Chris, Carrie Brown, Linda Perry, of course, everybody at We Are Here, and the folks at MusicCares. Thanks again, Brian. See ya.
Well, I've got a lover that moves my soul. He sure knows how to rock and roll, 'cause he's a tough lover, yeah, he's a tough lover, woo! He's a tough lover, yeah, tough lover, When he kisses me, I get a thrill, but when he does that wiggle, I can't keep still, 'cause he's a tough lover, yeah, he's a tough lover, woo! A tough lover, yeah, tough lover, The seven sisters have nothing on him. I'm talking about loving, he's fast as the wind. Well, the people all talk about he's got me fixed. It ain't hoodoo, it's just that twist. Well, he's the greatest lover ever come to pass. Don Juan ain't got a half of a chance. He can make you laugh, he can make you cry. He's so tough, he'll make Venus come alive. He can do anything that he wants to do. Step on Jesse James's blue suede shoes, 'cause he's a tough lover, yeah, he's a tough lover, woo! Tough lover, yeah, tough lover. Nothing on him. I'm talking about love and he's fast.